again. Let's talk DUNU. Now, I just am also testing just to begin this, the intro here, some DAPs. And I do come to a realization, more so than ever, is that sources make such a massive difference in your perception for what you're listening to in your gear. The Hibby R8 Mark II, the ANK Con Max, and my Shanling M8, and all the dongles that I have all sound very different. Now, and I'm bringing this up because I don't want to hear a comment saying, what source are you using for your impressions? And I'll explain that in a bit. So, DUNU SA6MKII. Now, I just came off of Meyer Audio Slevo SLT6 that I was absolutely raving about. I probably should have done more hype. Honestly, it's deserving. It's a fantastic IM. And I had the DUNU SA6 Mark II here as a comparison because, well, I think they were targeting that one as well with the stabilized wood faceplate and the clear shelves. In fact, I think they might quite possibly be made in the same place. Anyway, to go talk about the SLT6 just for a second, or you can go back and watch that video. But I think I wanted to really put my impressions down and give this a fair shake. I had a really good sense of its sound doing the ABC with the 3 different IMs. I had the Pen-on Turbo in there, so 3 different 6BA IMs. This was the most expensive. It's $579. And that's kind of why I wanted to shoot this video, because if it was 580 bucks, which isn't, you know, mega buck, but it was incredible. If it was killer, I'd tell you. But it's also $580, which is a huge chunk of change for many of us. For a 6BA, now the driver count is respectable here. 2 Sonyan BA woofers, 2 Knowles BA mids, and 2 Knowles BA highs are the complement used in the DUNU SA6 Mark II. Now, I will say something else. I am not biased one way or the other for DUNU. This is my 3rd one I've listened to. I've listened to the DUNU Vulcan, which it has its own kind of following but it's on the top end. If you're sensitive to sibilant BAs, then do not buy that one. And the DUNU Falcon Ultra, which is in my absolute favorites case beside my listening chair downstairs. So I love that IM to smithereens. And then there's this SA6 Mark II. I've heard a lot about it, and there's, again, like a mini cult following, and I can't figure out why. So it has 1 tuning switch, thankfully, only 1, which adds about 4 dB bass from, I'll pull up a graph here, from 20 to about 500 hertz is where it kind of affects the sound. And for my listening impressions, for all of the final ones, I turned it off. And there's a reason why. I find this IM is very unresolving, and it's either switch, either configuration. Let's talk about sound. I would have said, just listening to this IM, and that's, back for a second. So, when I originally started this vid, I was talking about sources. So, my impressions are using on the Astral & Kern Con Max. It is the most resolving, cleanest DAP that any source that I own. I love this DAP for that. Incredibly great stage, fast punchy bass, very neutral mids. Doesn't add a whole lot of coloration to it's still a very, very musical player, but doesn't add a whole lot of coloration into it. And I say that because that is my source used for these impressions. I'm trying to squeeze the best out of this IM, as I always do. Now, I would have said that the DUNU SA6 Mark II has decent bass. Actually, I would have said it has good bass just by listening to it on its own without any comparisons, and without prior listening to a couple others for comparisons. But listening to different IMs, and I get a chance to listen to a bunch where some people might not be able to. So that's why I think it's super important to share my impressions and with some kind of comparisons with, right? So talking about that bass by itself, the bass on the SA6 Mark II, while just listening to it might sound good by itself, it actually is not in comparison. Bass does have a kind of dynamic driver, old school kind of thump. More like a dynamic driver it sounds more dynamic driver than the kind of fast roll off of a balanced armature. That I find on some balanced armature IMs, they tune the Sonyan BA woofers to sound this way, but I find the snap and the attack in the mid bass suffers when they do that, unless they back it up with some BA mids that play lower. And I find it just softens in this kind of tuning the lower registers too much. So they're trying to make it sound like a dynamic driver, and in some ways they do succeed, but in other ways it doesn't. They don't take the best of both worlds. They don't play to your strengths. There's that saying, right? So if a BA in bass wise it has, you know, very fast and nice decay, then play to that strength. That's what you should do. And if you can, and I know it's doable because the Meyer Audio Slevo SLT6 did that. So I know it can be done, but it isn't done in this case. For an example, I was listening to Yellow Electrified to EDM. It was honestly just a lackluster performance, quite honestly, in the bass. It just lacked attack, and it didn't have faster decay like I would more wanted. It was just more of it sounded like an undynamic dynamic driver, quite honestly. And that also affects like stuff like piano, cello, all seem to be missing some note weight and certainly resolution in the bottom octaves. Now, mids. Now you would think this should be the star of the show for this IM, because it's, if you look at this tuning, it is mid-centric. It really should be. There's nothing popping up, no spikes, no big dips, no nothing. And so typically when you see that in this kind of tuning, it's more of a mid-centric, so you get more of, which is most of the music, which I find really funny. And I think I know the reason why. So again, they should be the star of this show with this kind of tuning, and you would think it would be, but with the way the SA6 Mark II is tuned, sometimes the mid sound actually recessed, not mid-centric like you would think. And I think that has to do with what they did with the BA dampening. I think they just dampened the shit out of this thing to smooth it out, tone it down. I don't know. It's an interesting tuning. In the shootout, for instance, I observed that the SA6 Mark II was the least mid-forward, the least correct when it came to instrumentals and vocals, except for occasional song with male vocals, who I thought it did a really good job. But overall, it did not. And when you push the frequencies starting to go up into the upper mids and treble, because there is just really flattened out from, 1K all the way over to 4K, where it starts to drop off. This, for me, is where all the problems in this IM are. I mean, the roll-off at 4K leaves a lot to be desired in this tuning. Instrumental sound off, not correct, especially in female vocals. They just, again, sound muffled. That's not the right word. They're still clear, but they just sound off. They sound smeared. There you go. Strings all sound lean. They're lacking any bite, and the timbre is just wrong. And in this case, so they tried to do that fake air thing again, at 12, 13K, adding in the big bump spike there to go past the dip in the mids. And some cases it works, adding in some air and some fake air, I'd say, and some detail and resolution. But I think there's that lack of treble energy, all of it across the board, from 4K to 11, 12K. That's such a big dip that it's too smoothed out. If you look at Advar, Meze Advar single DD, where they added that big fake air boost, it actually works. You can hear it. Makes a big difference. Some people don't like it. I think it sounds pretty cool. But that's a classic example of doing that and an application that actually works. So the overnampening, it just doesn't work for the SA6 Mark II. Keith Don't Go, Niels Lofgren, what a poor replay. It's one of my favorite tracks. He's live, acoustic guitar, male vocals, and acoustic guitar. It just is so smeared, smoothed out. Micro details, air separation are honestly quite embarrassing on this AIM in comparison to so many others. It's just not there. It's just missing that. This is a $580 IM, right? So overall, I think the SA6 Mark II in my shootout, right, was simply outclassed in every aspect. Price, first of all, bass, mids, treble, details, dynamics, stage, all of it. And to top it all off, really, and even in that shootout, it was simply the most expensive. If it was the cheapest, you would be able to do more forgiving, but being the most expensive, I don't think so. Even the DUNU Mini Hulk Pro cable is a stiff, tangly, unwieldy cable. It's not a great modular cable at all. So the sound signature that they were going for, I think, for kind of an inoffensive tuning, and for that most part, I think goal achieved. You've done that. But honestly, who would this resonate with? It comes across as kind of just a low resolution, smoothed out set. And again, I think it's overpriced, outclassed, and unworthy of your money. That's a bit harsh but true, and that's how I feel that this one came across. And another, I made this example with in the other video. If you wanted this similar tuning, okay, under $50, RT R2, similar tonality wise, but that is a better IM than the DUNU SA6 Mark II. I know the haters are going to come out with pitchforks, and I don't care, because it's honest to God the truth. This is a better tuned, better sounding IM than the DUNU SA6 Mark II. It has more detail, it has more air, it has more separation, has more treble, has better tonality, has better bass for under 50 bucks. That was a pretty negative IM review. I'm sorry about that. But honestly, and that's some of the biggest problem with this industry and the hype that comes around some of these IMs. And I don't know where it comes from sometimes. And I think it's important to watch some reviewers that you know and trust about their opinion and their, I'm not going to say library, because that's just, all IEMs should be able to, unless it's specifically tailored to be a bass head or a treble head IM or a monitor style IM, good IMs should be able to play all genres well, musically, as an audio file. That's what I'm looking for. Anyway, this is a Tone Deaf Monk. I'm out for now. Thank you.